Have you ever been in a situation where your professor or your teacher just couldn't teach and they still graded you poorly and you knew nothing when you came out of that class? Well, my name's Clary. I have been studying chemical engineering for the last, I don't know how many years of my life. I was in community college for a few years, and then I went to university and dropped out of school because I got sick, and I have had my full share of people being bad teachers. And so give me a subscribe and give me a like, and let's go into the video. So I started this video off when I was writing the script, and I actually don't have it in front of me, but I started this off as a how I would improve chemical engineering, and then it kind of just morphed into how I would improve university. And the things that I would do to improve university largely goes around grading systems and customer service. So a university is a business. You may not think of your community college, or your public school, if you grew up in public school for K through 12, as a business, but a university is a business, and they need to be providing customer service to their students. And I think it's really, really crappy of universities and of colleges to just hire someone because they were desperate, and then the student who has a bad complaint about the school, like they leave a really bad review of that teacher, they are still dinged for that bad GPA grade that they got from that class, that GPA killer, and then that teacher continues to teach. And so sometimes that doesn't happen, but like it's not like that student who had to undergo the bad teaching style first is able to get any sort of reparation for it. And so something that I would do personally to improve schools is to, one, take away the curved grading system. Now I know a lot of you are going to hate me for that, and you're like, well, I need that because like the teacher sucks at teaching, and so if the highest is a C minus and I get an F, then I automatically get a C. Yes, but that just propagates bad teaching styles to continue on, because it makes the teacher look falsely inflated by saying, well, look at my students, look how successful they are, right? When the student actually doesn't know what they're talking about. And so now your school is producing people who aren't nearly as competitive as other schools, and just because you go to a lesser named school doesn't mean that you actually have to be less competitive. The school, like, you deserve good education. Like, you need to be thinking about that. Like, I deserve good education where I'm learning and I have the know-how, not just that you're getting a good grade. Okay, being grade obsessed is going to put you in the wrong place. You need to be obsessed with the actual learning and the actual know-how and the skills. And if the school can't provide that for you, they need to provide some sort of customer service bending over backwards for you. Because I know that when I worked in retail, I would bend over backwards to make sure that my customers were well taken care of and that they left with a good experience. And if they had a complaint, I knew exactly how to work around our policies to make sure that I would get them the thing that they needed. And if something was off in the computer, just from like a technical standpoint, I knew how to get them what they needed. And I grew to be a manager. I was an acting sales floor lead, and so I still had I had all the managerial authorities, minus the actual, there are some actual authorities that the real manager gets to have, but I had the passwords, I had the keys and all that, and so I knew how to provide customer service. I've been providing customer service for years. I will email, I will fill out customer reviews just so that like people know how to improve their customer service, and I review the heck out of people. And so I know from just a business standpoint for me that if a university is not providing good education, they need to have some sort of refund policy. And so I would say doing away with the curved grading system paired with a required review, a class review of like how the teacher did. If everything was less than satisfactory, I believe that students should be able to retake the class at either free tuition or if the school can't afford it, at the very least 50% off, meaning that you can't be like, oh, we'll do a 40% off or 30% off. No, like it has to be 50% off or greater, so that the student can retake the class and it doesn't affect their GPA, as well as free software for the free, if the class requires software, then it's free for the student, and then parking passes or bus passes are free for the term that the student needs to retake that class. I think that's a really good penalization for bad hiring processes and just really desperate hiring processes where someone will just like if you're desperate, like you're going to the grocery store when you're hungry, everything seems good, so you're buying things that you don't even need, that you don't even really like, because you're hungry, right? I think that's what schools do, because they're desperate for teachers. Like, no shade to my physics professor, but it was his very, 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 very first time teaching, and he had a cultural and language barrier, which I'm not totally unused to that, because I grew up with people that have different accents, and yeah, but it was just the cultural barrier. I think even when it came to physics, it was just like, oh, you guys don't do that here, and we're like, no, we don't. And he literally curved the grade by 20 points on the final, because I think he felt bad for us, because he had a difficult time teaching. And as someone, when I was a teacher for the first time, I knew my students didn't understand what I was talking about. And so, like, it's very difficult to do that your first time teaching. And so whenever if you're not satisfied with that grade and with that class, I don't think that should count against you on your GPA, especially if it's a communal experience, because like your transcript doesn't actually show that, like, hey, I failed this class, not just because of me, but we all failed that class because that teacher sucked, he hated us, never had any office hours, and did not explain anything and made me feel stupid for asking questions, right? Like, if you watch my other videos on GPA, it's like, oh yeah, the GPA or transcripts assume that, like, you had a great teacher, you understood the material completely, and you had enough time to study everything. Now, granted, you have personal choices, and there's a lot of people, and I've made bad decisions when it came to time management, but like, there are bad teachers out there, and after being a teacher myself, like, I know that students who do poorly are like, they're the result of the teacher teaching poorly. And it's not even just like a lack of passion, it's not even just like a lack of skill, it's a lack of passion that some teachers have. And you can't be hiring people without passion for teaching, people who are not teachers at heart, when it comes to universities. So that is how I would improve schools. Those are just two things. I'll explain others in my other videos, but like, do away with the curved grading system so that you do away with bad teachers and that they never teach ever again and never harm people ever again with their bad teaching styles. And if there is a bad teacher, it doesn't count against your GPA because of the required review. It doesn't count against your GPA, and because you've lost this much time, your next class that you retake for this grade doesn't count against your GPA. It's at least 50% off, free materials such as software, and a free parking pass or subsidized parking pass, or a bus pass if that's what you take to class. Okay, I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.